This is the submission for poetry. For this module, you're going to select 2 poems. I have recommended this link to bookrix.com, which is a free resource. If for any reason this link does not work, then you are free to go to the library resources here on campus or go to Google and find 2 poems that interest you. This particular link is interesting because it gives you a little icon for the poems so that you can kind of decide the poem you want to read based on the icon. Let's look at it together. So this is Bookrix, and you can see that poetry here is organized by icons. So you can easily choose a topic that interests you. If for any reason Bookrix does not open, then here's another option. Whatever interests you, you can find by going to Google or using our library resources. A librarian can recommend something wonderful for you also. But you're going to type in poems about. So let's say I want to look for a poem about war. I can find any of these that I like. I prefer that you use one of these, but find 2 poems that interest you. And once again, remember our library resources are fantastic, and librarians are on call to suggest poems if you'd like. When you find the 2 poems that you like, you're going to follow these instructions. First, you're going to find the 2 poems, and I want you to read the poem that you select out loud. I know, nobody's going to see you do it, but I want you to be able to hear the poem and hear the rhythm of it. No, we're not going to go into great detail about rhyme and meter and any of that, but I want you to hear the sound of the poem. That's not asking that much. Wherever you found that poem, you'll copy that URL and you're going to go over to EasyBib and you're going to create a citation for that. I know you've already watched the EasyBib tutorials, but let's go through it real quick together. As I've done before, I've gone to EasyBib, I've created a new project. There it is, and I'm going to click that, and I'm going to put the URL of the poem that I selected into the citation box. So I'm going to pretend that that link to Bookrix didn't work, so I looked up a poem and I found one that I love. This is my favorite poem. And so I went up and copied the URL, and I'm going to go back over to EasyBib. I pasted the URL in the citation box. I know I'm in the right place because I see my bibliography works cited for poetry, and I'm going to cite it all the way through all the little orange boxes. And after I clicked through all of the little red boxes, there it is in my list. Now let's go back to the PDF and see what we do next. So now that I've created my citation, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a Word document to start with, or a Google Doc, whichever I'm using, and I'm going to answer these 3 questions. First, what is the theme of that poem? Now, if I need a little bit of help, I'll have to research that, and if I research that, I need to make sure that I document that in my works cited. So let's do that together. Let's pretend that I read this poem by William Wordsworth and I don't know what it means. And I don't know what the theme is, and I need a little help with that. So let's go to Google. So I asked Google the question. Now, I might also have gone to the library and checked it out there or talked with other people, but let's say that I used this method. Remember, I need to use a legitimate site. So look what I found. I found this wonderful free study guide, and this whole study guide is just about this one poem. And so I'm going to scroll down and see what it has to say about the subject matter of the poem and so forth. And right there is an analysis of what the theme is according to these folks. So, since I looked at it and I may use it, I'm going to copy it. I'm coming back over here to my EasyBib and I'm going to add that to my citations, because you will never see my name on a plagiarism report. And because I looked at it and I studied it, that means that I need to cite the information that I found in that particular website. I'm always going to create a citation no matter what. And there it is. It's all in my list, so I'm completely covered. Now let's go back to the PDF and see what we're doing. I'm going to consider the ideas that I saw in that particular analysis of the poem. That may or may not be right. I may or may not agree. But I'm going to write big and bold what I think the theme is, and if I use that resource, I'm going to make sure that I cite that. According to that particular website, this is the theme. I agree with that because. And I'm going to do that in my own words, but I'm going to give credit if I had to look for some resources. And then you're going to read that poem out loud, and then you're going to write in your own words, what does that poem sound like? I don't need you to use all of the poetic terms. We don't need to go into all that. I just want you to tell me what it sounds like to you. Sound like music? Does it sound like sadness? What does it sound like? And then you're going to answer the question in 2 sentences. Is this an elegy? Why or why not? So now you say, well, what's an elegy? Well, here's some information, but you need to research that also and find out what an elegy is. And then you'll decide whether the poem that you selected is or is not an elegy. Take you a couple sentences. You're going to do that for 2 poems. And then you're going to create your document, name, course information, the poetry, and you're going to write that little paragraph that you just created about the first poem that you chose and the second poem that you chose. And then that works cited that you created over there in EasyBib is going to be pasted right here. Now the poem that I picked for this demonstration is an 18th century poem, so it's a little different. The poems that you're going to find in here are more modern, they're easier to understand, and you are free to choose one of those. But I don't want you to feel limited. If you get excited about poetry and you want to find another poem, you can. But this resource is an excellent one because of the way that it's organized by topics, and you can find a couple of short poems in there that you like. The important part of the exercise is that you read the poem, you read it out loud so that you can hear the voice of the poetry, and that you answer those 3 questions on 2 different poems. Save that and submit it here. That concludes this tutorial on the poetry module.